Hello and welcome back to your favorite podcast, Pixels with Purpose, where the form is keyboard navigable, but the inputs use placeholders as labels. Pixels with Purpose is sponsored by Nordcraft, the world's first web development engine. Nordcraft combines a visual design tool with powerful web framework capabilities, providing everything you need to craft extraordinary web apps and websites. That's how we built Nordcraft in Nordcraft. My name is Salma. I'm joined by Andreas. We both work at Nordcraft. And today we are joined by Oleg Isonen, founder of Web Studio, web engineer, and open source author. Oleg cares about the open web, performance, accessibility, and visual development. How are you doing today, Oleg?
Hey everyone, I am doing fantastic. And that's what I always say when I have no idea how I'm doing.
Excellent to hear. Tell us a bit more about yourself. Maybe like what is your favorite food and the origins of your name?
Food? I don't do food. I do coffee. Name? Funny enough, I think the name is actually, super Slavic, like original Slavic name. I have zero Slavic genes. I'm like 100% Jewish. So here it is.
Great stuff. All right, so we're going to kick off with our first question. Oleg, what is Web Studio?
Web Studio has started as an open source version of Webflow. And when I used to work at Webflow, the biggest thing that I was not happy about is that this approach, this paradigm of visual development was not open source. And looking at WordPress, looking at open source tools, usage in adoption in the world, I felt like this is the core reason why Webflow is never going to be as big as WordPress, because they're not open source. And so, yeah, that's how it was born. But there was also other reasons.
Why is it so important? Sorry, why is it so important that it's open source? What does that enable?
I think fundamentally, the problem with tools like that, I mean, any category of tools where in order to use the tool, you have to spend unreasonable amount of time to learn how to use it. You spend kind of like from months to years mastering the tool. For me, fundamentally, I would never adopt any such tool if it's not extremely trustworthy. And open source is kind of a method that creates trust in the sense that whatever time I'm investing in it, I'm not wasting it. I want to be able to invest into something that I can keep building upon for years, like building the entire career. And you can see in a lot of spaces, tools like Blender and others, these tools are not going away. And that's kind of, I would say this is the core reason. I feel like there should have been a visual development platform that isn't going away. That's the core reason.
I very much agree. We had the same sort of realization at Nordcraft. We started out not being an open source tool, but we're now taking everything open source for the same reason, right? If you want to actually make a big splash and a big change, you have to think bigger than just the company you're starting around it, right?
Did you guys already open source it or not?
We are in the process. We've open sourced the runtime, and the editor comes next. Finally the backend. We had to do it a little bit in stages because it's quite a lot. Many different parts that needs to work, and we kind of need to separate the hosting infrastructure and hosting platform from the editor itself. So it's been a bit of a project and still ongoing, but we're sort of open sourcing more and more as we go.
The docs are also open source, and I find that on the subject of open source, it also has a great potential to create community around what you're building and what you're doing. We've had people from the existing community contribute to the docs already. We've had people from outside the existing community find a place in the community by contributing there as well. And we have also had some people contribute to the runtime already. And so I feel like that's that's an empowering like piece of a story in a company. It's not just, I want your money and you can use my tool. It's, let's make something together and let's ensure that the tool is as good as it can be for the rest of time to come.
Right. We do this as well, but I don't see a huge amount of contributions to docs, and I don't know why. Maybe we're not using a good tool for this. I feel like there is generally, I haven't seen a really good tool for docs, like the tool that first of all lets users contribute specific chunks of documentation, like here is a fix, and tools that allow also complete page writing experience that can be contributed and revisited, reviewed, and etc. Like contributing to docs, I find like it's a very important topic, and it's still kind of not working in general. I haven't seen a single really good platform for that.
Well, we've done that. We use GitHub for our docs, and the markdown is presented in a Nordcraft project, and all of the content is controlled via markdown in GitHub, and people can either choose to make small edits in the GitHub UI, or you can clone the repo and get it up and running locally if you are more familiar with that kind of thing. It's been working really well for us, actually.
We do this too, and we use Gitbook as well, and they can click and they see which page is being edited. They don't even need to find the repo first. They can just click on the page, land immediately on the file, submit a pull request. But if you zoom out, if you really look at this user experience carefully, you will realize it's total shit. Like people who are not used to GitHub, who are not, writing code day to day, they must be struggling, and I have seen them struggling, and I know that it's not great. GitHub UX is really complicated. I mean, you are lucky you have users who manage to do this, but I think we have seen a bunch of those as well. But I feel like in general, it would be 100 times better if we had something that is much easier to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely things that can be improved, sure. But what we found is it worked really well. And as you say, there isn't a tool that really lets you do this, because like all CMS systems require, like they're built around the idea of a closed system where everyone who contributes is part of the same company. So any sort of community contribution platform, at least I'm not aware of any. And what we have again with Nordcraft, we sort of went a little bit away from this term no code a long time ago, because it gave people the idea that it would be very simple. And the reality is that you kind of have to learn programming just like you do anywhere else. And therefore, a lot of our users are also a little bit more open to okay, this is a text format called Markdown. I can figure that out. So I think the barrier is a little bit less, probably, depending on what your community is.
Yeah. I mean, Markdown, I don't think Markdown itself is the problem. The problem is everything around it. Like the fact that you have to, after editing, make a commit. Like, people don't normally know what a commit is, and then after committing it, you have to create a pull request. What the fuck is a pull request? Like, who talks like that? Like, this is all not super friendly. This is all extremely developer engineering focused tools, and you want with a visual development approach, you actually want to lower the entry barrier. You want to get away from those tools. Like, take Git as an example. Git is extremely complicated. You can of course you can learn like 2-3 commands like git add, git commit, git push, git pull. But beyond that, this stuff really sucks. And like after 20 years, like I still don't know Git, and I'm not.
No one knows Git.
I'm not.
There's only Linus Torvalds know Git. It's the only one.
That if the contribution paradigm is based on Git and GitHub and pull requests and commits, like it's already lost. It's not great. Like I don't believe in that.
That's an interesting discussion though, because Andreas, I think you think the opposite. In not that everyone needs to learn the inner workings of Git, but like there's a level that you should get to when you're building stuff for the web. There's a level of knowledge, fundamental knowledge that you probably need in order to succeed, and tools that make it too easy for you perhaps are doing users a bit of a disservice. Discuss.
Oh, Well, I think that, well, I'll wait. I'll answer the last one last. I think in terms of like, nobody knows Git. This is true. We all learn it just well enough to use it as developers. I had to go pretty deep because we aren't technically using Git with Nordcraft, but we have almost all of the same functionality. And by almost all the same, I mean the 5% that people actually use. But I had to go quite deep to sort of really figure out how does it actually work on a file level, because I wanted to recreate it for Nordcraft, but in a way that worked with our architecture, right? It was interesting, but again, none of that was easy, right? It is complex, and also trying to simplify that experience for the user is also a complex project. I think it's an interesting, we got into this topic early, and it's quite interesting because it's one of the things where I think there is a bit of a difference between Web Studio and Nordcraft. Web Studio, which is the new one, yes. And is that Nordcraft's goal is not really to lower the barrier of entry. I think we do that, in that it is easier to get started, but that is not the point. The point of Nordcraft was always to create a better user experience for experienced developers. Like, how can we make experienced developers workflow and collaboration even better in product teams? And only when we feel like we're doing great there do we consider making anything easier. It's only if it's not in conflict with our main goal, which is to provide better tooling for professionals, right? And as a result, again, us using Markdown for documentation doesn't really matter so much because people generally already know how to use it. And also version control is something we can lean a lot more into, something like Git, and say, well, because almost everyone who comes in have a little bit of experience. Not everyone by a stretch, actually, but a lot of people coming in have some experience with Git. We can lean into that a little bit more, right? I don't think the last question you had there, Zama, was like whether like making it too easy is a problem. I don't think it is. But I think it's important when you build a tool to figure out what you're building, right? Because if you're building a tool for beginners, you're not also building a tool for experienced developers, right? Like you can only serve one master at the end, and you have to figure out who's this for primarily, right?
Honestly, this is how I have started. 2.5 years ago, or probably 3 years ago, when I started, I was thinking exactly the same way. So we're building something that simplifies the workflow, that makes it more straightforward, more standardized, generally easier to use, but without oversimplification, meaning you're still using CSS, you're still using HTML, etc., etc. You're kind of operating on the same level of abstraction with a different, more streamlined tool. And that has been my mindset from the day zero. But then what happened is I watched people use it, and I didn't enjoy the show. They struggle so much. And I am just tired of watching them struggle. I want people to be more successful with less effort at this point. And also, maybe I'm just getting older, and I'm just a little bit tired of the entire programming industry that reinvents itself every 3 months with a new framework, with a new approach, with a new architecture, with a new bundler, with a new programming language or whatnot. And all this jazz, all to do very simple things. I mean, simple in comparison, but let's face it, we are not building, I don't know, Unreal game engine with real world rendering and whatnot. We're building, in terms of, computer science, relatively simple systems. Okay, they have complexity when they scale, but generally, it's not like we're building rocket science here. It's really, it shouldn't be that complicated. And this feeling that we are reinventing ourselves over and over just to get a little bit ahead of ourselves from where we are now, it just doesn't feel right. It feels like we can do better in terms of simplification without losing, features, abilities, etc., etc. And especially if we look at everything that we do from AI perspective, AI that we know today is quite capable already, and it's getting better. And AI, actually, I think since I started experimenting with AI, my perspective has shifted quite a bit, because I just noticed, if it can do X, Y, Z, why are we even doing this ourselves? Like, can't we just already forget this, our skills in this area or that area, and just move on to build something more important, to do something more important?
But what if the AI just goes away? We already know that a lot of the AI companies are raising their prices quite significantly, putting people out of reach of the tools. Like, what if it just goes away and then we all forgot to learn something or unlearned something, and then what do we do?
Well, I don't think AI is going away. OpenAI can go away, or Anthropic can go away, but not AI, because AI is essentially a bunch of algorithms that are completely open source. They are completely available, and people are training models on a vast amount of data in a matter of weeks at this point. And some Chinese companies have already shown that those large AI companies essentially have zero mode, because like they have replicated 80% of what these large companies do in a matter of months, and they didn't need so much GPU, they didn't need so much money. It just shows that like we as humanity are not going to live without AI ever.
So I want to get into AI because I think we have a lot more to talk about on that topic. But I almost worry that if we get too far into it, there's nothing else we'll get to cover. So there's a few other questions I want to get in before we get back to because I know you've been working on different ways of integrating AI into Web Studio, and I want to hear more about that. But I think before we go too far, maybe we'll just cover some of the other things, because I would love to know a little bit about, well, first of all, the sort of, you talked about you started Web Studio as a because you used to work for Webflow and you wanted it to be an open source version, right?
Yeah.
So I have a little bit of experience, well, I've probably a lot technically in building these kinds of tools. And I know just how much pain, especially in the early days, that goes into this, right? Like I spent the first 3 years just working nights and weekends. And whenever I showed it to anyone, they had no idea what I was talking about. Like, because until you get to a critical mass of features, it's shit. It's just like, until you get to a certain point, people look at that and going, I don't know what I'm looking at. Right. So like, what made you so, because I feel like you have to have a lot of drive or a fair bit of disillusionment, and depending on how you look at it, to go into a project like this. Like for me, it was a mania. I couldn't let the thought go that this thing had to exist. But you must have had a similar feeling. Like, what pushed you through those early years or early time of developing Web Studio?
One word: naivety. I'm too naive. Like, one day I wake up and I think, let's get to Webflow.
Yeah.
I can do that. Maybe I will do it alone. 3 months later, I released a prototype, I launched it on Product Hunt, and I think, maybe I need a team. Luckily enough, investors contacted me, and I raised $1 million to do this with the team. But naivety and opinions on how I could achieve it with 100 times less resources kept me through it. Honestly, looking back, when we released the public beta version in, what was it, 2023, mid 2023, approximately after a year building with a team, I think it's quite remarkable in terms of what can you achieve as a team, tiny team, within a year. Right? And then after that, I thought, okay, we have done this within a year. What will we be able to do in 2 years or in 3 years? You kind of calculate this unrealistically, because you think it's going to be as fast as initially. It's not, but you still think, okay, I am going to do X, Y, Z feature, and then we are going to be better than Webflow, better than anything the world has seen. And this idea, this delusional thinking kept me going, and it still keeps me going because this is like fun. Being delusional is fun. I mean, if you're not delusional, you should probably not build companies because you're gonna have a serious depression.
And I mean, at this point, you got to say, well, yes, it was delusional, but it worked out. So surely, why can't the next delusion work out, right?
Why it is still delusional, and we are still trying to figure out what is next, because we are now at 75,000 users. Quite a few thousand are super active, but we are still nowhere close where Webflow is after, what is it, like 15 years of building? I don't even remember. I mean, it takes time to build all the features that people need. And like right now, Web Studio, for example, doesn't have a CMS built in. The whole idea was we are going to build the visual development environment on IDE and not build a CMS, because CMS is a whole different, rabbit hole. CMS is a different product, essentially. And if you're trying to build a visual development environment and a CMS, you're kind of building two products in one. And we struggled a lot at Webflow with the monolithic architecture of everything being interconnected and everything. And then I decided to not build a CMS and focus just building a visual development environment. But then again, a lot of people are not, experienced enough to know how to connect a third-party CMS with all those APIs, etc. And then on top of that, if you're connecting any other third-party service, you kind of have two services on your hands. And like, imagine you're being an agency and you're building for clients like 10 projects a month or something like this. And for every project, you have to maintain two services, two accounts, two everything. And two is not even a thing. It's way more. And then you start understanding how complex is the juggling of all of that for people who are actually using these tools for production, for customers, for building real world stuff, and not like, people who are playing around with these toys. And then we realized, okay, we need to build animation engine, which we just launched. Okay, we need to build a CMS, at least some version of CMS that is accomplishing certain set of goals. And then if you need, a really highly scalable CMS, then you go the route of connecting external CMS with APIs, etc., and not on day one. Or if you just need a super simple blog with a few, where you will have 10, 20 articles, maybe. You don't want to connect a third-party CMS if you have a landing page with a blog with 20 articles. That is just an overhead. It's just an overkill. And these types of realizations I had over the years. What needs to be done in order for this product to be, the kind of de facto standard for building for the web, and a good one. And that's what kind of kept the ball rolling, because you're realizing you're not there yet. Every time we launch something, then we look at the holistic story of the product, and then we are not there yet. And right now, today, we are not there yet.
I mean, just keeping up with the CSS working group is a fair bit of work these days, right? So you mentioned the naivete of being the reasons why you did it, and I quite like that. I used to actually, when fundraising, I used to tell investors that this was the dumbest idea for a startup ever, because it's an enormous amount of work before you can even validate it, right? Like, even to validate that everybody likes this. And it's one of the things, there's a lot of startup advice where people say, if you want to build a startup, you need to find some people who have a problem, then you need to validate that they're willing to purchase, and do all this market research and all this very business school project study plan approach to a startup, right? And I keep thinking, if I'd done any of this, I wouldn't have started Nordcraft. And it sounds like you're in the same boat. If you'd gone out and asked people, do you want Web Studio, do you think you would have ever started it?
It was easier for me because I started with the idea that I'm going to take the experience, the UX people have with Webflow in terms of visual development paradigm, make it better, make it more accessible, make it open source, make it free. And I already know who my audience is. I know who those people are who are using this type of product. So the initial challenge of even deciding who are you going for when you're just starting out, which is really hard, wasn't there for me. I knew exactly what I need to build. But the thing is, you just need to build a shitload of features to get to the point where the product is sort of complete, where it is accomplishing a set of goals, a set of real world product goals. And this feature set is not small. It's not tiny. But then on top of that, my ambition as a developer was always like essentially in my way, because my ambition wasn't just to replicate Webflow. My ambition was to build a better architecture than Webflow, to build it with the mindset that the entire thing has to be on top of real-time collaboration, and a collaboration that feels like Figma style, real time. It required a completely different architecture of the entire data situation that you have in the builder going on. I wanted to build something that when you publish it, it is the fastest website you can build, even if you are extremely experienced engineer and building everything manually from scratch. I had ambition to build a cloud that is the cheapest any platform has ever produced. And this is why we went for Cloudflare and Cloudflare Workers, because these are made to be extremely cheap. And like I had an ambition to build essentially a platform that is better than everything else on 10 different levels. And that is a kind of a mistake, because it takes a lot of time to figure out all those things simultaneously. And honestly, despite of lacking certain features, despite of having issues here and there, we have accomplished most of these goals. I'm quite happy with the performance. I'm quite happy with the cost of building a website, publishing the website, etc., etc. We have actually accomplished everything, except of I think my biggest regret and thing that I didn't accomplish or didn't accomplish well enough is marketing. I think I completely underestimated how hard it is to actually build a marketing pipeline that constantly brings and grows the stream of users that discover you as a product, that join you, that start becoming a user, and then becoming an actual happy user. Because I mean, it's on so many levels difficult, even starting with brand recognition and positioning yourself in the world where so many tools exist, and that's extremely expensive and difficult to do. And then moving over to building the product for the right audience, so that when they build something with your product, they're actually happy. We have been rewarding what we are and trying to even understand ourselves what we are because of that many times over. Because if you don't have a CMS and you need to understand how HTTP APIs work in order to connect the CMS, suddenly you're not Webflow anymore. So we removed the entire wording. Like initially it was saying open source version of Webflow. We removed this because people coming from Webflow world expect a built-in CMS. And that's it. If you don't have this, and if you don't have an option to connect the CMS without understanding HTTP and everything, it's a different product. It's a different audience. So we started narrowing down the audience more towards more technical audience, simply because we didn't want to have people discover the product, get excited, and then get disappointed. Because simply we don't have a certain feature, or some features are still too low level, too hard to use. And my journey was to figure out what is Web Studio in its current set of features, in its current UX, to manage the expectations right. And then from there on, grow into something that is closer to what I wanted to build in the first place, but it just takes time to get there.
Interesting point that you raised just then about aiming it more towards technical users. So before I go into my actual question, I want to just confirm with open source and Web Studio, does this mean that users can self-host the whole of Web Studio and they can just run everything from their own platform, their own infrastructure?
Yes, technically they can. We do have a disclaimer on the builder side. So there is the builder and there is the website that you're building. these two things are completely decoupled, like the builder itself and the website that you build. The website that you build is completely self-hostable on any platform in the world. It's pretty easy to do. The builder itself is harder because, well, you need to have a database. We have Postgres. You have to configure database accurately with extensions, etc., etc. And these requirements pile up. And then at some point, we added a Docker container that should be giving you the entire environment, with relatively few things you need to do. But then you learn that on Windows, something doesn't work there, something doesn't work. And then you start realizing hosting the builder itself is complicated. It's hard. It's actually a huge amount of investment to make this software be one-click installable. So we essentially, and we are still nowhere close to actually finishing things that we need to use, to have for the end user. So we said we need to focus. We have a small team. We cannot do everything. So we said, okay, let's put in a disclaimer. It's open source. You can do it. We don't recommend to use builder, like to self-host the builder in production, because we already know we had so many tickets open up because something doesn't work on some platform for some reason. And we simply didn't have time to dig into every issue, fix everything. So we definitely need to fundamentally think about how to get this open source version of the builder to the level of simplicity for installation that it actually feels like one-click open source software. And while doing so, we came with realizations that we need to change the architecture. We need to change how we build the builder so that it becomes extremely easy to self-host. And we came up with the plan, but this plan is like we just didn't start working on it. We kept building features that our users want us to build and focus on cloud users first. But essentially, what you get today without disclaimers is you can build in our cloud, in Web Studio Builder Cloud. You can publish with one click in Web Studio Cloud. And if you want to self-host this thing, you can as well either download the archive or use the CLI that we provide, get the website that you build in various formats as a React application or as a static HTML and CSS, and then do whatever you want with it. We have a bunch of videos, tutorials for self-hosting it using Docker, self-hosting it on AWS, on normal VPS, on Vercel, Netlify, and whatnot. Like we have been doing a lot of demonstrations and videos that you are really not locked in when you're built, want to self-host your website.
Before I get to my actual question, I have one more question. Do you get many people self-hosting their websites and the things that they create with Web Studio?
Yeah, we do. I don't have any monitoring or logs and statistics from the open source repo, even though everyone tells me you should install telemetry on open source because you need to know what others are doing with your software. I'm still a little bit hesitative about this, but maybe we need at least to have some sort of anonymized statistics about how many people are installing it and how many people are building websites on their own servers. So I have no idea how far it goes, but I know for sure it goes. I mean, we got constantly questions, and on Discord we have tags. We have either you choose self-hosted version or cloud version when you ask the question in the help channel, and we see half of the questions go into self-hosted version.
Because it's very interesting that you mentioned near the beginning of the podcast that getting people to contribute to docs and the workflow around contributing via Git and stuff is cumbersome and not ideal, yet you have lots and lots of people self-hosting code that they download, export from Web Studio. So you clearly have a lot of people there that are doing these technical things that don't need necessarily that simplified one-click thing. And so it just sounds like maybe there are a lot of people in the community that don't have any issues with, and I know you just mentioned one thing about Git, but I think there's probably more people out there that than we think that are using these types of tools that have those skills and that experience and knowledge.
I have been thinking about this for a while, and I'm like, how is it possible that so many are capable of self-hosting and yet they have not contributed to the docs? Like, how is it possible? And I probably have only one idea. We made it too easy. Like the CLI, the thing that you need to do to self-host this thing is made so easy that it's really much simpler than creating a change in Markdown on GitHub and committing it and creating a pull request. That's the only explanation I have for now.
Congratulations.
I'm sorry, but I think this is that easy. I don't know.
So what is your actual question, Sama? The one
That was
you
my question.
Oh, that was the one. Oh, we got to it. Excellent.
We finally got there.
I have one more question until we jump into the big cloud that sits on top of all of the software today. What has been the biggest challenge in building Web Studio?
Team. Building the
team.
Building the team that can actually do this. When I started off, I was like, well, I know people from Webflow. I understand. I think I know how to hire people. I thought that way. I have lots of people I know from open source space who contributed. Over my career, I met so many developers. I thought I can just look at the person in their eyes and tell exactly if they're capable or not. This is how I was like 2.5 years ago. And then after a while, you realize nothing is like that, quite nothing. And you realize that people you thought are going to be geniuses are actually not able to build anything remotely close to what you expect them to build. And it's quite a disappointment, frankly. But in the end, after that, like I had enough time to build a team that is smarter than me at this point. And I'm being CEO, I think makes me dumb, but whatever. The things that you do as a CEO, like it's not the genius type of thing. It's like running around, solving problems, figuring out solutions, calling those people, calling others people, like figuring out who can you talk to figure out this answer. Like I'm just a monkey on a laptop at this point.
Yeah, I had that same feeling of like, this is clearly not the most important role in the company.
I mean, it is
like it needs to be there, right? But clearly everybody else, we're really heavy relying on everyone else.
I mean, it is important in a sense because you're making very important decisions after all the monkey stuff that you're doing all day long. There is like 5 seconds a moment clarity where you make that very important decision that changes everything. But 90% of the time, you're just monkey doing stuff. And I think it's really not a smart job. It's not exciting at all. It's just grind and like keeping yourself motivated because you know you can build XYZ and achieve those things that you always wanted to achieve. And frankly, when I get to program something, when I get to build something, I'm the happiest person on earth. Like touching some code for me now is like getting this cup of, specialty coffee, extremely well made, and it's like, oh, I got to write a few lines of code. Fuck yeah, I want to write it myself because this is so good. It feels so good.
Savor every keystroke. My co-founder Casper and I have a rule. We don't stick to it well enough, but it's you can only build stuff if the camera's on. Because if you're building something, it should also be a video and should also be marketing. And we don't manage to stick 100% to it, but it's a pretty good rule of saying like we should be out there showing the world that we already made something that's fantastic instead of trying to make incremental improvements to it ourselves.
I wish I did this stuff a lot more. I kind of struggle how to make a video that is, I'm not even saying fun, but at least acceptable to watch without, wasting like hours on dumb things. Because like usually the way it looks like on the screen when I do things like program, it's dumb. Right? It's like really getting stuck every time and then going to
That's
Googling
real life. That's real life. That's real programming. It's human.
Like Selma does a live stream where she gets stuck all the time.
Don't compare her to dumb CEOs. Like no.
No, it's fair. That's true.
Very fair.
It's a different breed. I, for one, have found it incredibly easy to hire people that smarter than myself. I didn't find that difficult at all somehow.
You
I
are
don't
one
know
of
what
the
that
top
says.
99 software and top 99% software engineers in the world, aren't you?
I am one of the top 99% software engineers in the world. Good. So let's talk about AI. Because it already came up. It was always going to come up because it comes out in every conversation about technology these days, right? So here's the question. What about AI, Oleg?
Yeah. You probably need to, at this point, you need to ask, what about without AI? Like,
What about without AI?
like, what are the things that you would still do without AI? And I see less and less of those things. Like, honestly, I see so few things that I would honestly keep doing without AI that I have struggled finding those, like, at this point, really hard. So what we have, I'm going to tell you what we have been doing and researching for the past 6 months or so. So essentially the web design or design on itself with AI, from my perception, has been considered to be unachievable because creativity doesn't exist in AI, because the definition of creativity is, very complicated. Everyone has its own, their own. The complexity of making a design that works for humans is extremely challenging. So many aspects in there, starting from psychology, from branding, from lots of things, and functionality as well. It felt unachievable in general sense. AI cannot design, we thought. So we decided, okay, let's do this. Let's make AI design, and let's figure out if we can do it better than anyone else. And we went through the journey of trying all sorts of approach, starting with diffusion models and LLMs and doing and templates, and trying to figure out, is there any way that can do it reasonably well. And at some point, one of my engineers, again, I'm not the smartest on the team, figured something out that I can't even talk about, because then you can build it. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, there is a bunch of things. There's a bunch of things that we discovered along this journey that LLMs can do. And while doing so, and the biggest breakthroughs came as the reasoning models came out. Because before that, it was really, really difficult. We tried to do some kind of reasoning on top of the non-reasoning models, and it was shit show. It wasn't producing the right results. With reasoning models, we managed to make it follow our kind of steps, and we figured out a process that communicates with reasoning models well enough, a process that a human designer would go through in order to produce a design. All the steps, starting from feelings, vibes, colors, audience, who is it for, really building in emotional component into the design, because web design is really about emotions, and going from there, building the entire design. Let's say you want to build a hero section in a way that looks really, really decent. And decent, it is comparable or better than an average designer would do. And at some point we started getting results. It's not always from a single. The goal was to have a prompt that is really, really dumb. It's not prompt engineering magic from the user perspective. It's just whatever you want. You want a website for your coffee shop, fine. Say I want a website for my coffee shop. That's the level of prompt engineering you need to have to build it. And from there on, we managed to get really, really decent results, and we started discovering techniques, linguistic techniques, that allow us to tell the LLM what we want from it. And the mindset, my mindset has melted. Like, I melted away when I realized it actually understands everything. You just need to be really, really specific about everything that you want it to do, and explain with the right words the right things, and dig into those deeply hidden neural networks to get the right results. And so we started getting results from LLMs that look, let's say, on the level of an average designer. It's not going to be better than, top 5% of designers in the world. They're still going to be more creative, more interesting looking, but this level of quality means the bar of design is going to be the minimum. Because if you are a human designer and you cannot do even that, you're not going to find a job. So my realization was, on one hand, this is scary, because I think a lot of designers might get out of job if this approach, and I'm not even saying us doing this, because we are not, even if we discovered it now with a tiny team, it's probably going to be a bunch of other people who discovered this as well. So if you are not better than this as a designer, you're going to be out of job. This is my first realization. So the industry is stepping up in terms of quality. And if you think about the humanity as a whole, I think this is a good thing, because, I am really tired from those websites when you go to some website to, like I'm always doing, to going to a barber shop and, getting the haircut, stuff like this. You get to the website, you don't see shit. You don't understand who is working there, if they are open, what is the prices. And generally, like, if the design looks like shit, like, how can I trust them to cut my hair? Like, obviously I can't. And I think,
if you want actual information out of websites now, they just released the new standard for LLMS.txt, like robots.txt, but actually explains what the website does for robots. Never read the website. You want to read that text file instead. That's where the information is.
This is already deprecated. No
exactly
using it, and it's completely useless. I never understood why they even did this in the first place. It turned out the early versions of LLMs were better at parsing Markdown than parsing the entire website. But now this is over, and nobody is using LLMs.txt. Like, no search engine is using it. You don't need to do it. Forget about it.
No, I know, because these models were trained on like the whole internet. They know how to read HTML websites.
Yeah, I mean, there were some kind of issues where like the website itself wasn't perfect for this type of thing, so they invented this. But I think this is just some kind of optimization. I don't know what their actual reason was, but I think it was an optimization for resources consumption, basically getting the right data, the right information faster, or something like this.
I don't really know either. It's also probably a bit off track. So you were talking about design, and especially AI design. Yeah. And I think this is really interesting, because we kind of came at the same, I think we came to the same conclusion. We didn't dive very much into AI design, but we looked at what other people have done, right? And the sort of progress that was happening. We got to see Google Stitch come out that was in its way a step forward, at least in what we'd seen.
Yeah. I've tested and I found nothing interesting there whatsoever at all. Like, it works like a basic AI without any magic in it. When I test our thing that we're building, it produces like 10x better designs, like at least 10x.
Yeah, I mean, there's room for improvement with Stitch for sure. But I think it for me showed that there's probably a direction we're going, and there's going to be, like, AI design is not a crazy idea. It's absolutely possible. For me, it was never about whether the computer could design, because technically it's been able to design for ages. It's only been a question of, like, is it good? And it's been getting better, right? Like, it could do UI design for a couple of years now, right?
Yeah.
For me, the question was always, do I want it? Like, for us, we were looking at this like, do we want to build a tool where people can AI design the websites? Or would we rather actually just build for those 5% that you talked about, the 5% that AI can't replace? And we decided early on that Nordcraft was never going to be a tool for the people who wanted to mass produce website. It was always going to be a tool for the 5%.
One thing that I must say is that we are still not building for, anyone. Like, when you are coming from from the streets and you know nothing about design, it's still quite a different product to build an AI generated website that actually makes sense if you know literally nothing about web design, because it boils down to a single thing, that even if you are if you know what you want and you are not a designer, you will be presented with a version of design. Can you tell if this is good? You probably can't. You will struggle. My process of using our own tool, which we call Inception, is that whenever I want to design something, and this is actually like the even saying that I want to design, like I'm a developer. I've never actually designed things, and now suddenly I find myself talking about when I want to design something. This is super weird. Like this is new. So whenever I want to design something and I start entering prompts and experimenting with it, I end up producing 10, 20 different versions. And then I dial down to like 5, and then I have to figure out which one is the best. And this has been the most time-consuming process, because figuring out what I want and which one is the best fit for what I want is hard. And at this point, taste or having some opinion matters. And if you are actually building a website for a business and website matters, and it's not like toy side project where it could be anything, then you will probably still want to have someone's opinion who understands this thing. And this is why I still think even with AI, there should be someone who has taste, who can do all the other things regarding, publishing the website, figuring out what type of content should be there. Because, well, of course, AI can tell you what content you need, but you still have to go through this process. You still have to spend a lot of time answering lots of questions. It's still going to take you hours and maybe days, I don't know, depending on what you want to build. So there is still a lot of process involved if you build something that actually has value. So now with this tool, I think we are just accelerating the process. We are not truly replacing design. We are raising the bar. We are getting rid of really, really shitty designs. Well, hopefully, because out of those 20 versions, there were like 5 to 10 that still were shit. So if you choose those, I'm not sure we can help. And then it's still kind of like the same industry, but now this industry is extremely efficient, extremely quick, and can do even better things because they have more time to spend on caring about actual content, about actual users, understanding the use case better, instead of sitting there in Figma and drawing pixels.
Excellent. So do you have anything to share about when this comes out and when people can try it?
Well, I'm trying to push
or
this
is it
out.
too early?
It is too early. Like the super private version that is already working is there. I'm still not sharing it. I hope to start sharing it with few people this week, I hope. Maybe in the next couple of days.
That's not very open source of you, Oleg.
Oh, the Inception. Inception is not open source at all. The Web Studio Builder is completely open source. Inception is not open source at all. And the reason for this is essentially like with Web Studio Builder, we are monetizing hosting, right? Because how do you build a business model on top of this stuff if everything is open source? You monetize your cloud. You monetize your ability to deliver the website to the client, right? With Inception, if I make this open source, there is nothing to make, like there is no way this can sustain my team. Like we have nothing to make money off if we make this open source. So the only way to monetize this, to make money, is to sell AI tokens. Like you basically pay for what you use in terms of tokens. And if we go into bring your own key or self-host this thing, how are we supposed to finance this thing? Like honestly, the real world still exists out there, and we still need money to pay our engineers, and this is not going to work. So this AI thing, and especially in this case where we don't own the models, like these models are available to everyone. The only mod that we have is our knowledge how to build this thing that actually produces great results. And if you open source this, why would you ever pay us? Like, there is no reason.
No, I think that makes perfect sense. So First beta testers are getting a taste this week. We can look forward to the rest of the community, hopefully not too long after, getting access to this feature. I think it's very interesting. I'm very excited to try it out myself. Inception, you called it, which is coming to Web Studio. We need to wrap up. We've been going on for a whole hour. This has been a great episode. Thank you so much, Oleg, for joining us and talking about Web Studio and all of these interesting topics around it. I really like your takes on open source and why we need these kind of products in the world. Thank you very much. Do you have any final words there, Selma, for us?
No. Well, we'll see you next time on Pixels with Purpose.